Okay. What do you got to start the show. You got to start.
Go.
Oh. You're drinking?
Yes, I'm drinking.
This is the Board Game Snob Podcast. This is Jerry.
This is Enrique.
And we are still Gobulous, and this is Saturday.
Yes, Saturday.
Of the BGG Con 2022. Our Gobulous adventure is soon to come to an end. We did something today that we would have never done if Gobby was with us, because I don't really think this would be his jam.
I'm not gonna lie. I didn't expect Saturday to be just long and crazy.
It was very long and indeed quite crazy. I enjoyed this thoroughly. We played a mega game with the Dallas Mega Games DMG. DMG is what it's called. You took the card with them.
I took the card.
Where a mega game is a game.
Yeah, the Dallas Mega Games.
And they have a website.
Yes, which they do.
Is it dallasmegagames.com?
Yeah. Hold up.
Is that dot?
Yeah. Dallas Mega Games. I'm seeing just like a bunch of emails. If they probably just look.
If you Google that, you'll find it. So they put on a all day from 9:30 to 5 mega game, which is kind of / role playing / Dungeons and Dragons / some sort of choose your own narrative adventure game.
Yeah.
And this one was called Den of Wolves. Which is basically a knockoff of Battlestar Galactica. So when we have never played this, you enter. There's tables. Each of these tables represent a starship. Starships have 4 or 5 different people that are like the command staff, and everybody sits down and gets assigned about 40 people.
Well, like we assigned ourselves, basically.
We assigned ourselves because we showed up early, and we made the very wise decision of letting me pick the ship, and I picked the best ship, which was called the Shepherd, because it reminds me of Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite ship at the Citadel, BGG. And it was the food ship. It produced all the food.
You chose one of the most important ships out there.
And I made you the chief engineer. So you took on that role, and I took on that very obvious role as the council member, which the council was 7 people, including the president, that all represented various factions from the various ships, out of the 11 ships that there were. And the game was basically we are jumping from place to place trying to outrun what they call wolves, while all at the same time there might be wolves that have infiltrated the ship. So it's very Battlestar Galactica. Just think that. So while we're playing, the rounds last literally 30 minutes. And the first 18 minutes of it are what they call the action phase. And so that allowed the players to go back and forth between the ships and deliver goods, which were the cubes that were needed to produce what the ships are going to need to survive. So like our ship, we produced these cubes that were food cubes, but we required to have water cubes to produce the food, and vice versa. There's people who produce the ore. They needed water to help produce the ore, and the ore was sent to make fuel, and vice versa. And each ship had its own little shuttle. You had to put the cubes there and send one of your crew to the other ships to deliver it back and forth. I had no dealings with this mundane activity because this was Enrique's job, right?
Yes, delivering out supplies to all the ships that needed supplies.
Right.
Well, food generally.
Yeah, so I didn't deal with the mundane stuff. I was on the council, and we were making day-to-day big picture things.
But I had a lot of help.
You had a lot of help because we got to pick our captain and our first officer, which were 2 gentlemen that showed up. We recruited them to say, hey, you need to come to our ship. And the reason we liked them is that they all had facial hair.
Yes.
One of them had a massive beard, which I petitioned him to be the captain. He refused and said, nope, I think I'll just be the first officer. And the younger, still impressive beard took the captain's spot.
And he was impressive.
His last name was Bridges. He was Captain Bridges and First Officer Moore. They will live on forever in my heart. And so Enrique worked with these 2 gentlemen to supply food to the other 11 ships.
And it's funny because the first couple of rounds were rough.
They were very rough because after the first 18 minutes of the action phase, you go back to what they call the team phase for 12 minutes. And that's when you are forced to return to your ship if you can, and discuss the happenings of what have taken place. And at any time, the wolves can attack. And when the wolves attack, then all the various captains and first officers have to roll dice and do various things to protect their ships. They go to a command room, which has all these cool little minis, and make decisions. And then the people, the DMs that are assigning out damage and saying, oh, you've lost this many crew, and this is damage, and you need to do this, you need to do that. And all the while, the admiral of the ship, of the fleet, is trying to figure out how to jump. And the news media people who are just following people around, at the end of the day, they do a broadcast.
Yeah, they were the chaos element.
The CNN, Fox News, whatever you want to call it, of the ship, and they will get on and just say whatever. And they have their own little thing. So while that's going on, and after that, the president comes on and reads out the laws that the council has passed. And so I spent most of my time in the council room fighting with 2 out of the other 6 counselors who were complete idiots, and rallying support with my other counselors that were much saner. And while this was all taking place, people were dying,
yes,
and things were going on.
It was funny because people were dying from other ships, but then you look at the Shepherd, and we were just like pumping out.
Y'all were showering food everywhere. It was very nice.
We were pumping out just a lot of stuff.
So this game,
efficiency.
It was very interesting to see what happened. So when the game starts, they let you know that at random, they're going to pull everybody in the room one at a time at random times back to a room to let them read a little update. And it basically tells them if they are a wolf. So very early on in the game, you might get told you're a wolf, or you might play a few rounds and then later find out, no, you're a wolf. Your goal is now to figure out how to damage and bring destruction upon the fleet. Also, at the same time, they give everybody a card that is your own personal objective. And it's just something fun that they want you to role play.
Yeah, it's a nice little spice element.
So mine was, for some reason, to get the news media to broadcast something that was false and strange and just pointless, which I did by encouraging the media people to say random things, and eventually at some point advertised a potluck dinner for one of the ships during a battle. So that was my whole weird goal. Enrique's goal was
to be a council member.
Yes.
Which was never going to happen in any retrospect.
The only way you could have done that was by overthrowing me somehow and getting me to take the place of being a council member.
And that would have been bad in general.
Right.
So I completely abandoned
So you can
ambition.
ignore what one of the media people had the goal, which made sense later why he was always hanging around, was to get the president impeached, which is why he was inciting me to passion and violence to do just that, which, of course, when the president, who was a very nice guy...
Yeah, but he was a very nice guy,
very
but
nice.
He had no spine.
What?
Man didn't get nothing done.
Okay, I will say this. I thought at first he was role-playing the role of just being a bureaucrat and not getting anything done. But no, he was very indecisive and not wanting to rock the boat. And it was very comical. So it's like very meta when you're watching something take place. So the very first round of the game was all of us counselors getting together and the president deciding, look, we need to make sure that we have everything distributed correctly. And then we talked for literally the 18 minutes that we had. We didn't get up from the table. We spent 18 minutes arguing over various aspects of how we were going to distribute the food and the water and the fuel. And we get up from the desk and we go back to our ships when the 18 minutes was over to discuss. And what do I find out? That our very efficient Captain Bridges had already discussed with the other captains and already had a system.
Yes.
And we were shocked to find out that what we spent 18 minutes coming up with was not as good as what Captain Bridges had come up with on the fly. So, next council meeting, next round comes around. We show up, start talking, and we realize this is not our job. We need to focus on other things. We then spend that round, another 18 minutes, arguing about what we should be talking about, and talked about absolutely nothing. So, in a period of 7 hours, we literally passed 2 laws. 7 hours, there's like 15 or 14 turns in the game, I think, total, including a lunch. We agreed on 2 things, and the 2 things that we agreed on were this. 1, that the ships can lock their cargo bays if they like. And
Which was so stupid.
I'd like to bring up that y'all had already done so 2 turns prior. We passed a law saying that you can do it 2 turns after you had done. So an hour later, we finally did it. And another law was the law that I wanted passed because I had watched too much Andor, and I'm very much enamored with the ISB, that I felt like we should form the Internal Security Bureau so that we could seek out the wolves, because we had a wolf attack and there's traitors here and we need to find them. And the other council members balked and said, no, we can't do this. And I said, no, we're going to do it. And I pressured them to do it. And you know what? The president decided that he would put forth the motion to tell everybody that we are going to form the ISB,
But never formed.
but never really allow me to actually have any teeth to do anything. That's the other thing for which was announced. So my time was spent 7 hours. About the 3rd or 4th turn in, I realized that something was awry. I could tell something was going on the other ships. The main capital ship, the Aegis, and the Admiral.
The Admiral was
Who-
just so... He was another incompetent...
He
just-
looked like Dwight Schrute, but
less effective.
less effective. A less effective Dwight Schrute. I don't know. That might be a little too harsh. But so what happened, and it made sense afterwards, which really did kind of make me feel bad about, what happened, because I ended up, I'll just tell the story. So we weren't jumping. We weren't activating any of the jump drives to get away from the wolves who were continually attacking us and causing extreme violence.
Yes.
So in Enrique's infinite wisdom, he decided we needed to produce more food. He petitioned that we needed more workers, and a prison ship sent over what they called indentured servants, or basically prisoners, aboard the ship to help produce the food. Enrique supervised said prisoners.
But later on, we had a slight accident with said prisoner.
Right.
And 2 of our crew members were got wounded.
So
But that was quickly fixed.
It was fixed. It was fixed.
Like 3 minutes.
But they figured out that they needed to train these workers, and to train them, it would be better if they were like on some sort of probation or release. And at some point in time, they decided to release said prisoners, and he stabbed people.
Yes, he just
So,
went in and just stabbed.
I come back to the ship after a council meeting for which we have accomplished nothing, and then realize what happened to the crew.
and then we're just
And
all
Enrique-
3 of us were like, "Don't worry, we have it
Enrique just
handled."
looked at me very wild and said, "These guys got stabbed."
Yeah, but gladly our esteemed captain at the time was very calm about this.
Yes. So he recovered from this, and we at first started the game with a medical ship that was not staffed, and we had to hurry up and get it staffed. And so we shipped all the wounded over to the medical ship. And then in doing so, it caught fire at some point.
Yeah, it was caught. It caught on fire on the later rounds.
So while we were the Admiral finally decided to jump, which we could not figure out why he was having such issues giving out the coordinates. It was because that if the coordinates weren't kept private and were given to the wolves by accident and communicated to the wolves, they could then continually hunt the actual ships. So he was trying to figure out how can he disseminate this information to the captains and get it on their ships and not let anybody see it. And unfortunately, we in the council did not understand that. So the president decided that we were going to jump and we were going to decide the coordinates. So he decided to pick...
I heard about that.
Yes. So he picked random coordinates, and we literally spent 15 minutes discussing whether the coordinates should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7 people. We discussed this, whether or not we should pick random coordinates that for all we know might jump us into a star.
Yes.
We did not realize that we could not do this. We thought that this was something that we were able to force to do.
And sadly, it spread even more information within
So
the fleet.
literally, we voted on that, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 apparently is the preferable number compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the president took it upon himself to pass this information out at random to various captains who did not understand that this information is not useful. And the admiral had no clue about it. So before the turn was over, he was told, "You're going to jump. We have to jump the fleet." He had already sent out the information and the coordinates privately to the captains, who are now confused. So, to jump the ships, everybody has these cool little light bar things that they turn on that are road flares that flash to say, we're getting ready to jump. Our ships are ready to jump. And some people didn't have enough fuel. They're panicked. We're rushing fuel around. And then the jump occurred.
And what was it?
The Salvador.
Was it the Salvador?
The Salvador. So essentially, what ended up happening was right as we're about to jump, the admiral realized what had taken place and that there were people with wrong coordinates. And to fix all the confusion, he did something highly unadvisable. He contacted all the ships and said, "Your captains, come to my ship." And every captain left their ship. And as soon as they got to the main ship, the mothership, we were attacked. Fun fact. So now the ships are without a captain, with their first officers having to handle an issue, and ships are just jumping to jump.
So it was me and our first officer, and we're looking at this board and we're thinking, oh God, we're screwed.
Yes.
Because we have like 3 boarders, 3 ships that have boarded our fleet.
Right.
So we're thinking, oh no, we're so
y'all got boarded.
Yeah, we got boarded.
I was not present for that. I was in a council meeting.
So we got boarded. So I'm like, okay, so how do we deal with this? It's like we gotta take them out. So I just slide the dice over to our first officer, and I watch this man roll God rolls. One after the other, and he saved the ship.
Okay, and this is important that this was the first officer who did the God rolls. This will come to fruition at the end of this story. So I get back to the ship, remind you that the previous turn, when I came back, people had been stabbed by prisoners and Enrique thought should be let loose. Now I come back to find out, because you can't leave your area. You have to be transported. You have to have the ability to leave. So when we're under attack, I can't just walk over to the next table. I find out that now we've been boarded and the ship is in disarray. And not only that, ships have jumped everywhere. The admiral then decides to stay behind with his ship because the medical ship did not jump, as did several other ships. So all the fleet jumped ahead. We were lost. The admiral rallied, and through the efforts of the secretary of the state. So the president, vice president, and the secretary was this older gentleman, I'll say older gentleman, who, with a receding hairline, who took it upon himself to become an absolute hero, jumped aboard the shuttle, went over to the Aegis, the capital ship, got the coordinates, and then managed to go from place to place to place, saving all the ships by punching in the coordinates personally himself and then getting back to his ship before they jumped. And so literally abandoned his own ship, which is another important part of the story, and saved half the fleet. He literally became the darling of the media. So the Secretary of the State is now being praised every round by the media. And the Admiral looks like a complete idiot. Little do they know that the Admiral messed up, but so did the President, and we are all beside ourselves. So now we are trying to rally. We're trying to figure out, what can we do? We've got problems going on. What should we do? So the council needed some direction. And because I had very carefully developed some deals with people, I thought now was the time. I had every intention not to go the full route of removing the president and becoming the president myself. I thought that was a little presumptuous. But there was a young lady there who was also on the council who seemed like she had a good head on her shoulders. And
there were at least 2 to 3 people that were on your side.
Correct. I had the majority, and she seemed like she was very calm, very balanced. She was in charge.
She was that tall.
No. The other one. She was in charge of the refinery.
Oh yeah.
So I show up at the council meeting and I petitioned, we need to remove the admiral. We need to get rid of the admiral. Can we, as the civilian population, get rid of him because he is woefully incompetent? I put it up to a vote. I got vetoed by the president. He says, we can't remove him. We're going to do something else. I had suspected because I was acting as the ISB director, investigating things, and I said, there is a mole. There is a wolf on the mothership. We got to get rid of him. And the admiral's not doing anything about it. There's a leak on the mothership. We need to go in there and figure this out. The president vetoed me, which upset me greatly because I don't like vetoes unless I veto. Nobody vetoes me. So the very next round, I go back to my ship. I report that I was vetoed and I'm about to lose my mind. The next turn, I decided I'm going to impeach the president. I had the votes. We decided to go ahead and call for a vote. The media stepped in and decided to have some sort of mediated discussion that they were going to be the neutral party and let us present our cases. And at some point in time, because the people with me were so reasonable, they decided that they did not want to just impeach the president. Instead, they would just put it to a vote. And so mid-game, we had an election. And for some reason, when we put the vote forward, we made it to where anybody could just nominate themselves to become president.
Yes.
So every Tom, Dick, and Harry showed up to be voted on. So guess what happened? The secretary, who was the darling of the media, shows up. And he dilutes the vote, splits the vote. Nobody knew who to vote for. I'm going around trying to get people to realize you need to vote for this lady. Let's get her to be let's do something. No. The president stayed the president.
I don't know how that was possible, though.
I think it was rigged. Either way.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It went
rigged.
crazy. So I now suspect that there's a mole. Something's going on because we can't get anywhere. So next thing, I decide we've got to assassinate the president. So things are getting rough. Things are getting serious because bombs started going off.
Oh, yeah. 3 bombs went off.
Yes.
Within the final rounds.
Yes. A total of 3 bombings took place. The president's ship, who fortunately he was not on, blew up while he was not on it, injured the secretary and the vice president. We also jumped, and our ship that does the ore mining got wrong coordinates that were accidentally provided late. We found out later that was a sheer accident. The admiral, in his incompetence, gave them the wrong coordinates, and they jumped and were lost for an entire turn. So now we are, after 7 hours of playing a game, I cannot get anybody to impeach their admiral. I'm talking to the president. He's literally, when we are standing up for his announcements and going over all of our losses, he's showing up talking about laws that we passed that don't make a bit of sense. And now I realize it's the last turn. Something needs to be done.
So our beloved
Captain Bridges,
decided to take I don't know how, a member of one of the ships.
There were 11 ships in total.
I think it was their captain.
One of the captains
came over.
We felt like the coordinates were being leaked by a captain.
Yes. So one of the captains came over. Our captain says, "You're going to be held in the brig."
Yes. So I stopped one of the GMs and asked, "Can we take prisoners?" They said, "Well, if somebody comes over to your ship, then yes, you if they're not boarding you with the intent of having an army or something, you can take them prisoner." And I go, "Okay." I spoke with our captain, and he says, "We're going to take everybody who you think is a wolf, invite them to our ship, and we will hold them hostage." So we invite over the suspected captain. We tell him, "You're under arrest. You're in the brig." He loses his mind, starts trying to get out, he can't, the GM says, "Nope, you have to stay here." And lo and behold, I go back to the council chambers to say, "Look, I'm taking matters into my own hands. Since you guys won't make any decisions, I've invited over a person who I have investigated as the ISB director. This guy is the guy. This is the guy. We've got him held prisoner. I don't need your permission. My ship, we're doing our thing." And then they say, "That's a good idea. Let's arrest all the captains and put all the captains in prison." and have the first officers taken over because it's obviously a captain. And that is the weird,
Single worst idea.
the worst idea ever. But at the time, when you're panicked, I go, let's do it. So everybody voted yes. And then, as I get on my shuttle to go back to my ship, what do I find? That the president has told the admiral what has happened. The admiral sent his communications director with a bunch of Marines over to my ship to rescue the captain for which we are holding. And when he gets there, realizes what's taking place, and this tells that we're not only going to release that captain, which is highly suspicious to me, but he's going to arrest our captain. And Captain Bridges decides, I'm going to fight you. And somehow, with Enrique's help, successfully repels a boarding party and then captures the communication director that was sent to arrest them. So now we have hostages on our ship. The admiral makes an emergency announcement that they are going to leave the Shepherd, our ship, behind if we do not release everybody immediately. And our captain's response was, fight me. So craziness happened. I decided that perhaps this was all a mistake, and I very casually left the Endeavor and switched over to our sister ship, the Endeavor. I left the Shepherd and switched over to our sister ship, Endeavor, because I really thought that they were about to blow the Shepherd up. And in the very last moments of the game, bombs went off, and essentially what took place is that we all discovered that because I had incited this mutiny amongst all the ships, that the admiral decided not to jump and not to leave anybody behind to try to rescue them. And in doing so, because he didn't jump, the wolves that were there in the fleet took advantage of that, took over a ship because the captain of one of the ships, which we were right, of a different ship, the prisoner ship, which sent over the prisoner, who was also, I guess, known to be freaking out and stabbing people. They did that purposely to sabotage us, flew the prison ship into the capital ship, killing everybody. And to find out that the coordinates that were being given out to the enemy was being done by none other than our very first officer, who was just amazing at playing the game. And
what's so funny is that he was the person who decided to bring the prisoner that went deranged.
So
and stabbed
the
crew members.
three traitors were the captain of the prison ship, who was highly suspect, who was in the brig, who we thought was planning the bombs at the end of the game. Our first officer, who was actually planning the bombs and stealing the coordinates. How was he stealing the coordinates from the captain? He was the XO of the admiral, was handing out the coordinates to him and shipping it over to him secretly. So there were only 3 wolves: the XO of the admiral ship, our first officer, and the captain of the prison ship. So literally everybody who I thought was a wolf was not. And because I incited our captain to take prisoners, the end round was the GM said that we basically all died. And despite me trying to impeach the president, and also I had actually contemplated mild assassination attempt, which I was encouraging Enrique to perhaps take a shuttle with a bomb over and
suicide
the admiral, and I was going to have the president move to the admiral ship, and then Enrique's suicide. So
I would have survived that.
I don't think you would. So it got hairy that last turn, and so much so that basically at the end of the round, at the end of the game, after 7 hours of playing, the GM said, y'all were the smoothest group we'd ever seen for 3/4 of the game. Says literally, y'all had this figured out. Y'all were rocking it.
I'm telling you, the Shepherd kept everyone alive.
Yes,
and everyone knows.
Yes, and they said y'all were rocking it. It says it was just that last turn. We don't know what happened. Like it went chaotic that last turn.
Oh yeah.
And everyone kind of looked around, and they all started saying, I kept hearing people, the Shepherd, da 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 da, and it was like
everyone hated the Shepherd.
All of a sudden, we were the best ship, and then we turned out that we were crazy, and then it didn't help that basically our captain fought against our own people and took people captive, And then he finds out that he did it because I was encouraging him to do it. And then his first officer was a wolf. And that.
So he basically was like, all right.
Yes. And
I basically trusted our captain
Yeah.
for said decision.
And I was plotting assassination attempts. And so that all came to light. And basically, so yeah.
But overall, we had a very fun time.
It was very odd being in a room with 40 people and they all looking at you, everybody having a good time, but at the same time, they were just like, you kind of got us to this horrid place.
Yes.
I did appreciate, I don't know if I appreciated it. Actually, I'm quite disturbed, but my fellow councilwoman, who was one that you met later, who was very intense, really great job, described me to her friends as a smooth-talking Bill Clinton. I don't know how to take that. So I would play this game in a heartbeat again. And I'm afraid that from now on, I'm going to have to waste at least one day at BGG doing this mega game. This was so much fun. Incredible. So if you have, and there's apparently other mega games that are played, like Watch the Skies or something of that nature.
I'll look that up.
If you,
I'm pretty sure there'll be at least a video.
They have mega games here down in Dallas every month. I think they have a Discord. You go on and reserve a ticket and show up. I remember Shut Up and Sit Down played a mega game back in the day. I remember when I was watching them a lot. It was like 2 videos of them playing a mega game at a convention and how fun that was. And so it was very similar to this one. I really enjoyed this. If you get a chance at any convention to put something like this together, random people and just the animosity and the intensity, because you don't know if people are just playing it up, if this is a role. Some people were really just playing. One group that was very frustrating that we had to deal with was that when we got our cards,
it the Quazon?
The Quilion. We were supposedly not supposed to like these ships because they were of this nation or this group that we didn't like, and they got instructions that they were supposed to act in a way that always befitted them. So every time their councilman was always, well, how will this benefit us? And he played that role perfectly, which made us hate him, and he stalled absolutely everything, but that was what he was instructed to do, and he played it perfectly. And so it was a great game. I absolutely cannot speak more highly of it.
It was just so good.
It was so good.
I just love running around. I didn't do any type of talking with anyone, basically. I just did a bunch of running.
It went by so fast. Like literally when we broke for lunch around noon, I thought, the kid doesn't seem like... I said, didn't we just take 3 turns? And like, no, y'all are like 6 turns in. And then the afternoon was just gone. We spent 30 minutes for lunch, and then it was like, next thing I know, we're standing around and we're walking out, it's 5. And I go, we spent 4 hours in here? Like, yeah. I mean, it was just insane.
Because I didn't think we were in for that long.
I love the news. I love the media people. The media people really killed it.
I loved how the Discord was like kind of
It was so they
tied into the media.
They started also in this game. They have their own Twitter and Discord. So the media people are tweeting random stuff out and posting things in the Discord at the same time, kind of giving people updates and spreading rumors sometimes and just craziness. And one of the things that took place that really did not ingratiate people to the shepherd and myself was that I like to talk and draw at the same time on a notepad. So I'll often be talking and writing out what I said. And for some reason, I didn't have a pen, so I borrowed a marker. And I wrote, after being very frustrated with a council meeting, the Quilion, which is the name of a ship that happened to house a counselor that I did not care for, sucks, in big, bold letters on a notepad, which then, after a few turns later, I get approached by our captain and said, hey, did you see the Twitter? I'm like, what? Somebody posted a picture. The media people walked by our desk, saw that, took a picture of our ship sign and that, posted it to the Twitter and said this was found at the desk. It was literally like some sort of gaffe that would happen in real life. And we think this came from the desk of Council Member Baker, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And so now that made the council meetings much more awkward. So I denied it, of course, and said it was done by somebody else and couldn't have been us. Man, that was good. So anyways, can't recommend that enough. Please play a mega game. Gobby would have died. He would have hated this.
Oh, he would have hated it.
I think next time we're going to have to make him do it. Just one time, let him have fun.
I feel like we would have to play a very small ship at least. With very little interaction to even have him play.
The media people doing their newscast, little sound effects beforehand, and then they introduce that one guy
I'm pretty sure they were amazing.
That guy was a Quake brand Ted Lasso. That guy looked like Ted Lasso. And they played a little thing jingle on his phone. He'd get up there and, hello, Fox News 1, the only news in the galaxy. And he'd do his little spiel. And he nailed it. The guy nailed it. And that was his whole thing. And, it was good. It was good. So that to me was that was good. So that's Saturday. This is Saturday. Tomorrow's Sunday, the last day. We're going to drag in, probably play maybe one game in the morning of something good, maybe, if we can.
Or maybe even open that box of Nemesis.
You need to do an unboxing.
Yes.
And, so yeah, so we got to sign off. This has been fun. This has been really fun.
What time is it?
It's 10:30 right now.
Oh, God.
It's time for bed. 11:30. It's time for bed.
Yes.
Sign it. You got to do your thing now.
You first. And
this is Jerry.
And this is Enrique.